The jungle of Virelia 9 did not welcome visitors. It breathed, it hungered, and it whispered through the dense canopy like a sentient dream on the verge of turning into a nightmare. Sergeant Cal Rennick adjusted the filter on his rebreather mask, the HUD in his visor flickering with scans of the immediate area. Spore density peaking motion detected to the southeast thermal spikes overhead. The humidity made his combat suit feel like a pressure cooker. Virelia's twin suns never stopped glaring, and under the triple canopy light slithered through in twisted beams, casting the ground in a shifting patchwork of green and gold. He kept moving, quietly, efficiently, boots brushing aside fluorescent moss that hissed at contact. 4 days chasing a fugitive across this damn jungle, and not a single thank you from command, he muttered. His voice buzzed through the comms, though there was no one to hear it. His target, Zuravel, the last of the Resian infiltrators, was elusive as smoke and just as dangerous. Bio-enhanced reflexes, chameleon physiology, and a bounty fat enough to pay off Kale's military debts and buy him a one-way ticket off this floating hellhole of a planet. The tracker on his wrist pulsed a slow, rhythmic beat that had been growing steadily louder since morning. She was close. Damn close. He cut through a wall of broadleaf ferns taller than he was and found himself on the edge of a sudden clearing. His eyes caught movement there, slicing through the light with fluid speed. A figure in charcoal gray exoskin, almost invisible against the dappled forest floor, her violet skin only visible in flashes between her evasive maneuvers. Silver tendrils of hair trailed behind her like streaks of moonlight. Kyle crouched, lifting his rifle slowly, breath even gaze locked. And then the ground beneath her shifted. It started as a subtle tremor, then a snapping of roots like bones cracking beneath pressure. Zura didn't even have time to react as the ground exploded into movement, a massive pulsating bloom of crimson and amber erupting upward like a mouth from the underworld. The petals unfurled, revealing rows of filamentous barbs and wet gleaming orifices dripping with acidic mucus. Kyle's heart lurched. The damn jungle was eating her. Zura twisted, tried to leap away, but a vine thicker than his thigh lashed around her ankle and yanked her backward. She screamed a fierce, defiant sound, even in terror, and fired blindly with a plasma pistol, the bolt searing into the creature's fleshy base. It didn't even flinch. Kyle didn't think. His body moved on instinct. He dropped his pack, surged into the clearing, and with a bellow slashed down with his vibroblade, severing the vine just above the grip on Zura's leg. The plant shrieked an echoing wail that vibrated through Kyle's bones and recoiled slightly. That was his only window. He grabbed her arm, yanked hard, and rolled them both away as the plant lashed out with a second set of thorned appendages. One of them missed Kale's neck by inches. He could feel the air ripple with its passage. They tumbled into the underbrush, half covered in sticky digestive fluid, and leaf litter gasping. Zura growled, shoving him off. "Why call it occupational pride?" Kale said, wiping his face. "Hard to collect a bounty when the bounty's soup." She blinked, her deep golden eyes narrowing as she scanned him. "I was handling it." "Yeah," he said, pointing back toward the monstrous flower now retracting angrily into the earth. "You were really winning." Zura staggered up, brushing off gunk and moss. Her lithe frame trembled, whether from adrenaline or fury, Kale couldn't tell. "You were sent to kill me." "Actually," he said, rising with a grunt, "technically, just capture you. Alive. Preferably not half digested." She stared at him for a long moment, then spat to the side. "You're human." "Last I checked," he said. "Kale Rennick, Interstellar Recovery Division. And your Zuravel ex-intelligence corps accused of sedition, data theft, sabotage, and, oh yeah, punching a high-ranking diplomat in the face during a peace summit. Respect." She smirked just barely. "He touched my tail." Cal blinked. Noted. A moment passed between them, heavy, full of questions neither wanted to voice, before Zura's head turned sharply. "We have to move. You think the plant's going to call friends?" "No," she said, "but you're not the only one tracking me." Kale sighed. Of course not. They ran. Through bramble, over fallen logs, under glowing root arches that buzzed with ambient energy. The forest never rested, and neither could they. By the time the sky turned teal and shadows deepened, they found temporary shelter on an outcropping above a mist-choked ravine. Zura collapsed against the stone, wincing as she examined acid burns along her side. Here, Cal said, tossing her a small med kit. Standard issue. Won't regenerate limbs, but it'll keep you from liquefying overnight. She took it, eyeing him suspiciously. You're very helpful. For someone planning to sell me back to my executioners? I'm not a fan of execution, he said simply, settling down a few feet away. I'm not even sure I'm a fan of this job anymore. She applied the gel, hissing softly, then glanced at him again. So what are you really, a bounty hunter with a moral code? That's cute, Cale chuckled. That your way of flirting. If I were flirting, you'd know, she said flatly. He leaned back, staring up at the twisting canopy overhead. Then maybe don't start with, you were going to kill me. I said, sent to kill me. There's a difference. Another silence fell, but this time it felt less like a standoff and more like a pause between breaths. Cal watched as her bioluminescent markings, barely visible in the day, began to shimmer faintly in the dusk, like stars beneath her skin. What are those? He asked, nodding toward her arms. She looked down. Emotional telemetry, part of Rythian evolution. We don't lie well. Well, he said I'm either flattered or very confused. Zura's markings pulsed once, a faint golden hue swirling around her neck. Flattered, she admitted. Cale grinned. Good, because I think we just became reluctant partners. She raised an eyebrow. And you think that'll keep you alive? He gestured toward the jungle. Well, that plant didn't kill me. You didn't shoot me. That's already more than most of my past partnerships. Her lips curled into a reluctant smile. You're a strange one, Cale Rennick. You say that like it's a bad thing. From somewhere far below the ravine, a low rumble echoed upward, a sound too deep and long to be wind. Zura's face tensed. Another predator, Cale asked. Worse, she said quietly. The Scour Hounds. They were deployed when I went dark. Black Ops recovery. No questions. No survivors. Kyle's smile faded. They tracking your signature, mine, and yours now. He stood grabbing his gear. Then we move before they do. Zura stood too, flexing her newly bandaged arm. She glanced over her shoulder at him, her markings flaring once in a shimmer of warning. You sure you want to do this? This ends badly for both of us. Kyle locked eyes with her. Not if we end it first. As night claimed Virelia 9, they slipped back into the jungle hunter and hunted now, walking side by side, unsure of what they were to each other, but knowing the only way out was together. The moonlight on Virelia 9 was a dull blue smudge behind clouds, barely enough to outline the chaos of vines, roots, and glowing fungus that blanketed the jungle floor. Cal's boots landed with careful precision, his every step chosen with the instinct of someone who knew the forest wanted him dead. Behind him, Zura moved like a shadow, silent fluid, and irritatingly more graceful than him, despite the acid burn still fresh on her side. I swear this place hates carbon-based life, Cale muttered, brushing a sticky fern away from his shoulder. It hissed at him and wilted, offended. Zura didn't laugh, but she made a noise that could have been the Rythian version. It's nothing personal. It just thinks we're edible. Fantastic. So do half my exes. She smirked faintly, but her hand hovered near her sidearm. Every few steps, her eyes flicked behind them, scanning for movement. They'll come through the air, she said eventually, voice low. Scour hounds don't hunt like infantry. They hunt like predators. Glide silently, infrared, vision, anti-noise tech. You won't hear them until you're bleeding. Sounds charming, Cale said. And I assume your plan to avoid them involves more than sarcastic banter. Barely, she said, adjusting the settings on a compact device clipped to her wrist. But I've got a scrambled signature beacon buried 5 clicks west of here. I was saving it for emergencies. This qualifies. Lead the way, Princess Spy. She gave him a side eye. Never call me that again. Yes, ma'am. The terrain sloped downward, and the trees grew more twisted the deeper they went. One was shaped like a coiled serpent, its bark glinting with wet luminescence. Another opened and closed its petals with wet, squelching sounds as they passed. The jungle was alive in a way that didn't feel metaphorical. After nearly an hour of silent movement, they reached a wide fissure in the forest floor, 30 feet across, maybe more. A deep ravine filled with bioluminescent fog and the distant echoes of moving water. No bridge, no vines strong enough to swing. Cal raised a brow. Tell me you're not expecting us to jump that. No, Zura replied, already pulling something from her pack. I'm expecting us to climb through. He peered over the edge. There was a path of sorts, a winding, narrow ledge carved into the cliff face. Moss-covered, wet, slippery, probably unstable. I hate everything about this, Kale said. Good, she said, slinging her weapon across her back. Then we're bonding. They began the descent inch by inch, clinging to roots and jagged stone. Kale felt the ground shift under his boots twice, and each time Zura's hand shot out, quick, firm, anchoring him. She didn't speak, but her glowing telemetry patterns flashed pale yellow alert, controlled, focused. You're doing that glowing thing again, he said between clenched teeth as he tried not to fall to his death. Is that your way of showing off I could let you fall and find out? I'm starting to think you're into me. You're delusional. At the bottom, they followed a shallow stream through a half-collapsed cave filled with chirping creatures and alien lichen that blinked in rhythmic pulses. Zura paused at a seemingly unremarkable boulder and pulled out a knife, no, a data spike, and jammed it into a thin crevice. The rock shimmered and vanished. Just like that. Cloaked hologram. Hidden cache, Kyle asked. Relay booster. Masked signature one-use burst. We trigger it, it'll transmit a false trail south. If the hounds are tracking heat or movement, they'll follow that instead. She keyed in a command. The device beeped, pulsed red once, and then launched a signal spike that cracked the air like thunder. A tiny flare arced skyward. Kyle flinched. That's subtle. They'll pick it up, she said, turning away. We've got maybe 20 minutes before we need to be somewhere else. They doubled back, using a different path through the trees, Zura weaving them into natural cover. It was only once they stopped to rest near a tangle of whisperweed that Cal finally let himself breathe deeply again. His hands were filthy. His face stung with scratches. He was alive, though. That counted. So he said, leaning back against a warm rock that vibrated faintly. Any idea what's on your file that makes people want to vaporize you on sight? Zura didn't answer at first. She sat with her knees pulled up, her eyes watching the flickering shadows. Her markings were dim, tired. There's a data shard, she said eventually, buried in an old comm station on the mountain. It's encoded with transcripts, orders from high-ranking Concord Command to sabotage a Rythian relief fleet during the Sharla crisis. Kyle blinked. Wait. The Sharla crisis. That's ancient history. 17 years ago, but the fallout's still being manipulated. Someone's been rewriting how it happened, making the Rythians look like aggressors, justifies occupation, resource claims, makes war profitable. Kale whistled. So the data proves the Concord started it. She nodded. And you're just carrying this around in your... What pocket in my spine, she said dryly, encrypted into my personal biosymmetry. It can't be extracted without killing me. Kale sat forward. And you were gonna, upload it at a data core and vanish? Zura hesitated. That was the plan. Before they sent the dogs. Kyle looked at her for a long moment. The fugitive, the firebrand, the spy with a death wish and evidence that could rewrite history. And he'd been sent to drag her back in chains. This is way above my pay grade, he muttered. Mine too, she replied softly. A sudden whoomph of air snapped their heads up. A flicker of movement, a shimmer against the trees, and a shape dropped silently behind them. Kale spun just in time to see a scour hound decloak its armor, matte black, and razor-edged its helmet, a blank faceplate of death. It moved like water, faster than it had any right to. Cal shouted a warning and fired the plasma bolt, slamming into the hound's shoulder. It barely flinched. Zura had already rolled behind cover, drawing her pistol and returning fire. The hound ducked, slipped sideways, and came straight for Kale. Blades hissed from its gauntlets. Kale met it head-on. Their blades clashed with a shriek of metal on metal. The hound struck with brutal precision, its attacks fast and efficient. Kale barely blocked in time, his arms shaking with every impact. But he was stronger and dirtier. He kicked low, catching the hound's knee, and when it staggered, he drove his blade into the seam of its chest plate. The hound let out a digital snarl and collapsed. Kyle stood over it, panting. One down, he said. Zura didn't smile. There's never just one. The trees around them shimmered. 4 more hounds uncloaked. Kyle gripped his blade. So, retreat. Hard, yes. They bolted together, dodging plasma bolts that melted the foliage behind them. Zura tossed a flash pulse grenade, momentarily blinding the hounds. Kale grabbed her wrist and yanked her into a narrow canyon, one he hadn't seen before, but prayed led somewhere. Somewhere not full of death. They ran until the jungle swallowed them again, heartbeats pounding like drums in the deep. Whatever this mission had started, as it was no longer about credits, no longer about orders. It was about survival, truth, and the strange pull between two fugitives bound by more than circumstance. The ground beneath them finally leveled out the jagged slope, giving way to a narrow gorge choked with mist and glowing spores. Kyle's lungs burned with every breath, but he didn't stop until they'd cleared the canyon mouth and collapsed beneath the shadow of a cliff face. Zora leaned against a jagged boulder, one hand pressed to her side. Her chest rose and fell in shallow pants, her gun still in a tight grip. "You're bleeding," Kale said between breaths. "It's mostly theirs," she replied, though she didn't look convinced. He crossed to her and gently pried her hand away. The burn from a glancing plasma bolt seared through the edge of her armor and scorched the skin underneath. Not fatal, but ugly. "Hold still." He pulled the last of his med foam from his belt and began applying it. The canister hissed as the healing agent foamed across the wound, instantly cooling the skin and hardening like an artificial scab. Zura winced. "You always pack medical supplies for your targets." Cal grinned faintly. "Only the ones with decent aim." She didn't smile, not fully, but her eyes softened, just a flicker, and that was something. They sat in silence for a while. The jungle beyond the cliffs pulsed with distant life, too far to track, but too close to ignore. Zura's telemetry lights shimmered faintly as she pressed her back to the stone knees drawn up. "You okay?" he asked eventually. "Not really." He waited. "You know the worst part of being hunted," she said. "It's not the running. It's not the near deaths or the sleepless nights. It's the not knowing if any of it matters. If staying alive is really doing anyone any good." Kyle rested his arms on his knees. "You carry data that could unravel the Concord's power structure. I'd say that matters." She glanced at him. "Or it could just get buried again, rewritten, discredited. I'm a traitor in their eyes. Who's going to believe me? I believe you." The words came out before he could stop them. Her head turned slowly toward him, eyes unreadable. For a moment, the only sound was the soft rustle of spores drifting like snow around them. "That makes one," she said. Kale looked away, pretending to check his scanner. "So what's the next move?" "There's a forward comm relay buried in the ruins north of here," she replied. "Old Rythian mining colony. The Concord wiped it off maps after the occupation. But the hardware's still there. I checked it weeks ago. The transmitter core is intact. Can it reach off-world if I hard-link it to the shard embedded in my spine and boost the power through a high-frequency arc surge?" "Maybe." "That was a lot of words I only half understood," Kale said, standing. "But I'm guessing it translates to, we go north." "Correct." Cal extended a hand to help her up. She hesitated, then took it. Her fingers were warm despite the jungle's chill, her grip strong, but not rigid. When she stood, they lingered half a second too long before letting go. The path to the old Rythian ruins took them through what could only be described as the belly of the world. The jungle deepened into strange geometries, trees bent in unnatural curves, vines that hummed with internal resonance, and pools of liquid light that glowed even in broad daylight. Zura led the way now, her posture more confident the closer they got to familiar ground. Kyle followed occasionally, slicing back a creeping vine with his blade or checking the perimeter with his scanner. "You used to live here?" he asked, stepping around a root that hissed like a steaming vent. "A long time ago," she said. "Before the war. Before I wore a sidearm instead of a translator badge." He raised a brow. "You were a diplomat." She snorted. "I was a cultural liaison. Spoke 18 languages. Smiled for press conferences. Bridged gaps between races. What happened? Someone decided war was more profitable than peace." Kale nodded. He didn't need more detail than that. By nightfall, they arrived at the edge of the colony ruins, half buried under creeping moss and vines. The buildings looked like crumbling bones jutting from the earth. The relay tower still stood partially intact, its upper half leaning against the skeleton of an old biodome. "This is it," Cal asked, scanning the surroundings. "Doesn't look very promising." "Looks can be deceiving," Zura replied, already moving toward a partially collapsed stairwell. "Help me lift that." Together they shifted a chunk of fallen metal plating, revealing a narrow passage leading down into the underground relay chamber. Cool air poured out, tinged with the scent of stale circuitry and old ozone. Inside, the place was surprisingly intact. Dust floated like memory in the air, but the core console still hummed dimly like something half asleep. Zura approached it with reverence. "I'll need about 15 minutes," she said, unslinging her gear and pulling a data splice from a hidden pocket. "The core's old Rythian tech. It'll respond to me faster than to you. Guess I'll stand here looking pretty." "I've seen prettier," she said, crouching beside the interface. "Was that a flirt?" he asked, leaning against the wall. She didn't look up. "Was that a hope?" He chuckled. Minutes passed in focused silence, the low hum of the relay growing louder as she worked. Kyle wandered the chamber, glancing over old crates, half-burned data pads, and the occasional scorch mark. Signs of conflict, signs of erasure. Suddenly his scanner beeped. A flicker. Movement. Zura stiffened. "They're close, can't tell how many. Signal's weak. They're jamming us," she said. "Just like before. I need more time." Cal moved toward the entrance and set up a defensive position. "Then I'll buy it." "You sure?" He looked back at her and nodded. "You save the galaxy. I'll handle the murder drones." Her eyes met his, something unspoken passing between them. Then the console flared with light and the chamber echoed with the rising pitch of power. "We're almost there," she whispered. Kyle gripped his weapon tighter. "Almost isn't good enough," he whispered back. Then came the sound of boots, silent, deliberate, too precise to be anything but scour hounds. Kale turned to face the darkness outside the tunnel and readied himself. Behind him, Zura's voice rang out, low, urgent, and absolutely calm. "Kyle." He looked back. She stood there silhouetted by the glow of the console. Her markings blazed like fireflies, her expression equal parts defiant and afraid. "Don't die." He gave her a grin that didn't quite hide the tension in his jaw. No promises. Kyle moved like a ghost through the narrow access tunnel, every footstep measured, every breath controlled. The old mining shaft leading out of the relay chamber had once been a service corridor, but now it served as a bottleneck. A perfect place to stall the bastards. He crouched behind a support column and watched the shadows twist near the entrance. The scour hounds were close, too close. He could hear the hum of their kinetic dampeners, the faint hiss of oxygen regulators. They were coming in pairs, moving in rhythm, flanking like wolves trained on one scent. His scent. Kyle waited, hand hovering near a sonic charge he'd affixed to the side wall. The moment the first hound passed it, he triggered the detonation. The blast didn't kill them, wasn't meant to. But the concussive wave sent two armored forms crashing into the far wall, scrambling their equilibrium just long enough for Kale to vault from cover. He fired twice. The first bolt missed. The second hit a joint seam and dropped a hound with a high-pitched crackle. The third one whirled, striking with a baton, crackling with energy. Kale ducked, rolled, came up low, and smashed the butt of his rifle into the hound's knee. Metal gave way with a satisfying crunch. The hound staggered. Kale didn't wait. He slammed a pulse blade into its neck joint and twisted. 2 down. Then he heard it whirring, distant, but growing. A high-pitched whine rising steadily. "Damn it," he muttered. They brought a drone. Back in the relay chamber, Zura's fingers flew across the console, her breath shallow but even. The interface responded in pulses of deep green and gold, echoing her bioluminescent patterns, as though syncing with her nervous system. The data shard embedded in her spine had linked successfully. The old Rythian comm system, ancient but powerful, was aligning, decoding, unlocking. She glanced at the timer, 3 minutes until full upload. She hoped Kale could buy them that long. She didn't doubt his skill. That wasn't what scared her. It was that she suddenly cared if he didn't come back. The realization hit her mid-keystroke and nearly threw off her sequence. She gritted her teeth and shoved the thought down. Later, when the galaxy wasn't trying to erase them both, a distant scream of metal rang out down the tunnel. Blaster fire. Close. Then silence. Zura turned slowly toward the corridor, her heart hammering louder than the relay's hum. Kyle staggered back into view a second later, one hand pressed to a bloody slash on his shoulder, his rifle sparking and useless. "Company's thinned," he rasped. "But we're going to need a new door." She rushed to him, sliding under his arm and helping him to the floor. Her markings glowed a sharp orange, fear, not panic. "You're hurt. I've had worse. One of them bit me. Bit you like metal teeth. Very rude." She actually smiled, still talking. "That's a good sign." His head lolled against the wall. "Relay 75%. Almost there." "Good," he muttered, "because I'm definitely bleeding on something important." She pushed her hand against his wound, applying pressure with her sleeve. "Don't die," she said again, firmer this time. Kel met her gaze. "That's starting to sound personal." "It is." The room dimmed for a moment, then pulsed with a low tone that vibrated through their bones. The relay's core flared to life, and streams of light wrapped around Zura's wrists like data vines. Her telemetry shimmered brighter than ever, deep violet and gold, complex and layered. Kale's eyes widened. "Is that normal?" "It's responding to my emotional state," she said, breathless. "The stronger the signal, the faster the upload." He chuckled despite the blood. "So I'm literally helping just by bleeding all over the place?" She didn't answer. She was too focused now, fully immersed in the data stream. Her mind stretched out across the relay system, unlocking pathways she hadn't accessed in years. Rethian protocols, conquered archives. Proof file by file rebuilding itself like a puzzle she'd been born to solve. Then confirmation ping. The data burst was live, transmitting. Every classified message, every doctored order, every command that led to war, betrayal, and silence. She gasped, staggering back from the console, eyes wide with relief. "It's done," Kale exhaled. "You just poked the biggest hornet's nest in the galaxy. They'll be coming. All of them." He stood groaning, gripping the wall for support. "Then let's not be here when they arrive." She moved to his side, looping his arm around her shoulders. Together they stumbled from the relay chamber and into the ruined biodome beyond. The world outside had gone eerily quiet. The jungle held its breath. Zura tapped her wrist console. "There's a secondary escape tunnel through the hydroponics sector. Leads to an old mag rail line. If the tracks still hold, it'll take us to the mountains." Kale gave her a crooked grin. "You and your bolt holes. Habit. You don't last long in this job without fallback plans." They walked slowly, the forest glowing faintly in the dark, the stars peeking through shattered dome glass above. Kyle limped, but refused to fall behind. After 20 minutes of quiet travel through moss-choked corridors, they finally emerged onto the edge of a ravine, where twisted rail lines stretched toward the highlands in a silver arc. "Are we just walking the rails?" Kale asked, wincing. "No," Zura said. "We're riding." She pointed to a rusted transport car half buried under vines nearby. With a few quick commands, she reinitialized its core. The lights flickered to life like an awakening beast. Kale chuckled. "Of course, you hotwire trains. I have many talents," she said, helping him into the cockpit. As the transport rumbled to life and slid forward down the rails, Zura adjusted the settings and set it to autodrive. They leaned back in the cabin, breathing in the stillness. It was the first moment they'd had to simply exist. No running, no shooting, no lies. So Kale said after a beat, "We just exposed one of the biggest military cover-ups in history. I've got multiple stab wounds and you glowed like a rave stick while hacking an ancient computer." "That accurate?" "Mostly." She turned toward him, her eyes glowing faintly. "Thank you. For bleeding on your floor. For believing me." Cal looked at her. Really looked. The hard edges she'd shown in the jungle, the careful calculation in her voice, all of it still there. But something else too. A softness. A vulnerability she didn't let many see. "You know," he said, "when this is over, you're going to be the most wanted woman in the galaxy." She smirked. "I already am." They sat in silence, the hum of the rails carrying them through the night. Then without warning, Zora leaned in and kissed him. It wasn't soft. It wasn't slow. It was adrenaline and relief in the knowledge that they might die tomorrow, but weren't dead today. Her mouth was warm, fierce, insistent. Kale's hands found her waist, pulling her closer. Her markings glowed with abandon, bright streaks of desire dancing across her skin. When they finally parted breathless, Kale exhaled. That was Unexpected. Zura smiled. I don't lie. Well, remember, no complaints, he murmured, brushing her hair back. They sat together as the transport hummed steadily toward the mountains. Somewhere behind them, the Concorde burned with the weight of truth. Somewhere ahead, a future neither of them had planned was waiting, but for now they had this, and for now it was enough. The transport glided along the elevated rails with a ghostly hum, carving a silver path through the early morning mist that clung to the cliffs like a second skin. Mountains loomed ahead, jagged and snow-capped, glowing faintly under the amber light of Viralaya 9's twin suns, as they began to rise in tandem, one red, one gold. The view was almost peaceful. Kyle hated it. He shifted uncomfortably in the seat, his shoulders still stiff, despite Zura's field dressing. Every movement reminded him he'd gone toe-to-toe with elite Concorde operatives and lived barely. He was beginning to suspect his survival rate had more to do with dumb luck and Zura's stubbornness than anything in his training. She sat across from him now, one leg curled beneath her, calibrating a small hollow projection from her wrist console. Her focus was unshakable lips, slightly pursed brows, furrowed fingers moving with a dancer's precision. Your face does this thing when you concentrate, Kel said. Like you're mad at math. She glanced up. I'm trying to map a path through the Narthic passes without triggering any seismic activity. This planet's crust is moody. Moody, Kale repeated, raising an eyebrow. Like you. She shot him a look, but there was no real venom behind it. Still talking, she muttered. Must not be bleeding enough. I'm a fast healer. Plus, I figured if I flirt hard enough, you'd forget we're technically fugitives now. Zura blinked at him. That was flirting. Kale placed a hand on his chest, feigning offense. You wound me well. You're already wounded, and you kissed me last night, so I know I'm doing something right. That made her pause. She didn't respond immediately, but the faintest shimmer rippled across her collarbone, her telemetry pulsing in soft gold. I was caught in the moment, she said finally. He leaned back with a smug grin. Sure you were. Zura didn't deny it. They rode in silence for a while longer, the landscape shifting from jungle to rocky upland. Trees grew sparse here, twisted by wind and altitude. The sky stretched wider, clearer. Then the train jolted. Cal sat up straight, instincts flaring. Zura's fingers flew across her console. Something's wrong with the power feed, wait. A sharp metallic clang echoed from the rear. Kyle stood grabbing the emergency rail. Tell me that wasn't what I think it was. Zura tapped the external sensors. The screen blinked, then displayed a distorted silhouette clinging to the last car, humanoid but bulkier. A second one landed beside it, shaking the frame. They tracked us, she said. Harkivan's ghost squad. Not scour hounds, these guys are worse. Blacker than black ops. Kale growled. How the hell did they get this close without triggering perimeter alerts? Zura's eyes narrowed. They didn't follow us. They anticipated us. The transport shuddered again. Cal didn't wait. I'll handle them. You decouple the back cars. You can't fight them alone. I don't need to win. I just need to delay. Zura stood, pulling him back. Don't play the martyr card, Kyle. He glanced at her hand on his arm, then up to her eyes. Hey, I survived carnivorous plants, acid 3 hounds, and your sarcasm. These guys don't scare me. She let go slowly. Don't die. He smirked. You really need a new line. Then he disappeared into the rear car. The rear compartments were dim lit only by flickering safety lights. Kyle moved quickly, climbing the access ladder to the roof. The wind hit him like a hammer, but he pressed on. 2 Ghost Squad operatives were on the roof, already cutting into the junction cables with plasma blades. Their armor shimmered with cloaking overlays that flickered against the sunlight, ghosts in every sense. Kyle didn't bother with stealth. He tackled the nearest one full force, driving them both across the roof plating. They rolled fists, slamming knives flashing. The ghost was faster than the hounds, but Kale had experience and leverage. The second one turned, drawing a sleek pulse carbine. Kyle saw the muzzle flash and rolled just in time. The shot grazed his leg, heat searing through his thigh. He cursed, twisted, and hurled a shock mine from his belt. It stuck to the ghost's chest and detonated with a loud whump, sending him flying off the car and into the valley below. One down. The first ghost surged back up, helmet, cracked blade slashing. Kale caught the arm twisted, drove his elbow into the ghost's throat, then slammed the hilt of his knife into the helmet visor. The ghost reeled. Cal didn't let him recover. With a final shout, he kicked the operative off the train. Then the platform beneath him groaned. Too late, he realized the decoupling mechanism had triggered. The entire rear section, him included, was detaching. Cal lunged. His hand barely caught the forward car's railing. Fingers slipped. He dangled over the rail legs, swinging over the open chasm as the rest of the train peeled away behind him. Then Zura was there, arms outstretched, eyes wide telemetry, glowing hot with panic. She grabbed him. Together they collapsed hard onto the deck as the decoupled cars vanished behind them, swallowed by the ravine. For a long moment, neither of them moved. They just breathed. Then Kale coughed. That was not great. Zura's voice was tight. I told you not to die. I didn't, he wheezed. Close, though. Think I dislocated something. She touched his face, her fingers trembling slightly. You idiot, she whispered. You absolute idiot. He grinned up at her. I know. But I'm your idiot now, right? She stared down at him. Then wordlessly, she kissed him again. Slower this time. No adrenaline, no explosions. Just a quiet, lingering kiss that said more than either of them would admit aloud. When they parted, Kyle whispered, I take it we're past the shoot-on-sight stage of our relationship. Barely, she said, helping him sit up. But you're making progress. The train rumbled onward, winding through the high passes toward a horizon none of the maps covered. Zura checked her console. Signal burst complete. The message got through. I confirmed the receipt. Ping multiple Concord systems accessed it before the encryption relocked. Kyle raised a brow. So we just broke the galaxy. She nodded. We did. He leaned back, grimacing at the pain in his leg. Guess we're officially outlaws. For now, she said. He looked at her bloodied, tired, radiant under the twin suns. And after, she smiled, small and dangerous. After we make sure this was worth it. The train finally hissed to a stop at the edge of a long-abandoned maintenance platform carved into the side of a cliff. The mountain air was thin and sharp, a biting contrast to the humid jungle they'd left behind. As the engines cooled with metallic groans, Kyle staggered off the transport and immediately regretted not asking Zura to carry him. His thigh wound burned like fire. His shoulder was a wreck, and his ribs, while not technically broken, were definitely considering it. Next time he muttered, I vote we hijack a hovercraft. Zura stepped off behind him, scanning the horizon. The mountains loomed like ancient titans, their peaks jagged, snow-dusted, and almost beautiful in a hostile, please fall off this ledge kind of way. There's a cave system up ahead, she said. It was a Rythian observation post before the occupation. No one's accessed it in over a decade. Perfect place to disappear. Cal grunted, adjusting the strap on his rifle. I swear, every time I think you've run out of bolt holes, you pull another one out of the terrain. She didn't respond right away. Her gaze lingered on him. There was something in her expression, a tension that hadn't been there before. Not the usual hard calculation, but guilt. You shouldn't have come this far for me, she said quietly. He blinked. You're seriously going to bring that up now? After 2 assassination attempts, a mutant flower trying to eat you, and a romantic high-speed train brawl, Zura crossed her arms. I mean it. Kale sighed, limping closer. Look, if I'd stayed behind, I'd still be miserable and bored chasing low-level smugglers and watching the galaxy implode on the news. Instead, I'm here, with you, saving the galaxy one concussive grenade at a time. She looked at him, truly looked, and her markings glowed faintly along her collarbone in patterns of uncertainty. I don't want you to die because of me. Cal reached out, resting a hand lightly on her waist. Then stop kissing me when I almost die. It's encouraging me. That earned a huff of breath that was dangerously close to a laugh. Come on, he said. Show me your secret mountain cave of wonders. She rolled her eyes but led the way. The cave entrance was narrow and hidden behind a curtain of frost-coated vines. Inside, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber of natural crystal and smooth stone. Ancient Rythian text still flickered here and there, buried panels glowing with soft energy, remnants of a time when this place had been alive with voices. Zura activated a concealed console and powered the internal systems. Soft light swarmed the cavern, illuminating the curved walls and casting long shadows across the smooth floor. This place is incredible, Kale whispered. You sure no one's been here? Not in years, she said. My people abandoned it during the withdrawal. I found it by accident during an old recon mission. Never told anyone. She opened a small stasis locker and removed a med kit. Without a word, she crouched beside Kale and began treating his thigh wound. Her touch was precise but gentle. I'm not used to this, she murmured. Fixing people, having someone to fix. Kyle's heart kicked hard against his ribs, and for once he didn't have a snarky response. Zora paused, then looked up at him. You really would have let the Concorde kill you, wouldn't you? He met her gaze. If it meant protecting you, yeah, I think I would have. She exhaled slowly, then leaned forward and rested her forehead against his. You're the dumbest good man I've ever met. Thanks, he whispered. You're the smartest, dangerous woman I've ever made out with in a moving vehicle. Their laughter echoed softly through the cave, too weary to be loud, too real to be ignored. They sat together for a while after that, no plans, no alarms, just two fugitives wrapped in an uneasy peace. Eventually, Kale asked, So, what now? Zora glanced at the console on the far wall. I need to check the response. If the Concorde received the evidence and didn't erase it, we'll know soon. And if they did erase it, she looked at him. Then we keep going. Find another transmitter. Another way. Kale leaned back against the wall. You really don't give up, do you? I can't afford to. He nodded, then groaned. Do we have any food in this paradise of yours? Maybe a vending machine with military rations? Zora smirked and stood moving to the side alcove. She returned with a sealed ration pack and tossed it into his lap. Cal tore it open. Is this spiced root loaf, Raytheon standard issue? He bit into it and immediately regretted it. It tastes like regret wrapped in sadness. That's how you know it's authentic. They ate in companionable silence, passing a small canteen, back and forth, their shoulders brushing now and then. Kyle didn't ask about her past. She didn't ask about his. In this space, none of that mattered. Only the now. Only the closeness. Only the strange rhythm they'd begun to fall into like old partners, rediscovering something that had never quite died. Later, as the cave dimmed into artificial night, Kale lay on his back staring at the crystalline ceiling, his wounds finally dulling under the meds. Zora curled beside him, her head resting lightly against his chest. Her patterns had faded to a soft blue, now calm, unguarded. You really trust me? She asked, almost too quiet to hear. He ran a hand through her hair, letting his fingers trail through the silver strands. I really do. She was silent for a long time. Then I've never had someone stay. You've got me now, he said softly. Outside the cave, the mountain wind howled like a warning. Somewhere far below, the Concorde's networks were unraveling. Across the stars, someone powerful was very, very angry. But for one night, Kale and Zora were safe. Together, alive, and maybe, just maybe, starting something worth surviving for. The message arrived at dawn. Zora's wrist console blinked with a secured ping as she sat atop the rocky outcrop just beyond the cave entrance. The mountain wind tugged at her hair, and the horizon glowed in soft streaks of lavender and peach. Kale slept below, sprawled across their makeshift bedding, with one arm thrown dramatically over his face, snoring softly like a man who had narrowly avoided death so many times he decided it wasn't worth worrying about. She ignored the flutter in her chest at the sight and focused on the message. Signal received. Decryption complete. Confirmation from 3 Concord systems. Alliance Council review in progress. Operatives dispatched. Not all responses friendly. Caution advised. Zora exhaled. It had worked. Everything they'd risked, every step, every burn, every bullet wound had actually meant something. The data was out. The lie unraveling. The illusion cracking. But then came the second message. A fragment of a scrambled transmission. No sender ID. No encryption. Just coordinates. And one name. Zora. Her stomach tightened. She tapped the coordinates into her map. They weren't far, just past the pass to the east near the remnants of a buried Nexus builder vault. Abandoned tech. Not Raytheon, not Concorde, old, dangerous. She didn't like it. Behind her, Kale groaned. Is that light? He mumbled from the shadows. I didn't authorize mourning. Zora didn't look back. We got a message. He sat up, rubbing his eyes. Please tell me it's from someone offering us a beachfront hideaway and lifetime supply of antibiotics. Concord's received the data. It's in review. Some systems are reacting, not favorably. Kale groaned louder. So not the beachfront thing? There's more, she said. We also got this. She turned the console so he could see the flashing coordinates. He squinted. Who sent it? No signature. Trap, definitely. He stood stretching painfully. Then we should go check it out. Zura blinked. You don't think we should avoid the obvious trap, Zura, he said, walking up beside her. We've been shot at, hunted, and nearly eaten by a sentient flower. I think at this point, if the universe's bad guys want to schedule their next ambush, it's almost polite to RSVP. She tried not to smile. Failed. You're ridiculous. Painfully charming, he corrected. Big difference. They geared up rechecked weapons and reserves and set off along the ridge trail east. The terrain was treacherous, loose shale, wind-swept cliffs, the occasional territorial flying lizard that looked like it wanted to test their taste, but they made good time. As they descended toward the vault's location, the environment shifted. The rocks grew smoother, the air heavier. The mountain silence gave way to an eerie hum that vibrated through their boots, through their bones. Kale tapped his thigh. Are your teeth vibrating? Yes, Zura said. Good, just checking. The vault wasn't a building so much as a wound in the mountain, an entrance shaped like an inverted spire, with dark metallic edges that pulsed faintly like they remembered how to be alive. Zura paused. This is ancient builder tech. I thought your people didn't mess with this stuff. We don't, she said, because it has a bad habit of reacting. Reacting how? She didn't answer. They stepped inside together. The interior was a spiral descent, smooth walls covered in flowing script neither of them could read. Zura's telemetry flickered as they walked, first pale, then flickering orange, then a glowing purple that made Kale reach out instinctively. You okay? She swallowed. It's responding to me. They reached the chamber. At the center stood a control dais similar to the relay core, but larger, humming with energy that hadn't existed in eons. Around it stood three figures. Two wore armor. Kale recognized Concord Black Ops. The third wore a diplomatic cloak unmistakably Rythian in cut, though the face beneath the hood was shadowed. Zura Vel, the hooded figure said. The voice was wrong, too smooth, too neutral. Zura froze. Who are you? You've triggered something you don't understand, the figure said. The Nexus systems. The builder code. It bonded with you when you activated the relay. Cal stepped forward, back away from the dais. The two operatives raised their weapons. The hooded figure raised a hand and the chamber rippled. Zura gasped. Cal swore. The floor beneath them shifted into a translucent platform that displayed cascading symbols, ancient languages, unfolding in patterns they couldn't comprehend. Light wrapped around Zura's wrist, then surged upward, flooding into her spine like it had been waiting. What the hell is this? Kale shouted. She's a conduit, the figure said. Not because she is Rythian, because she was chosen. The builders seeded this world long ago with anchors. The system recognized her pattern during the relay surge. She is a key to what Zura demanded, struggling to keep her balance as the chamber pulsed through her. To everything. Kale fired. The bolt slammed into the nearest operative. He went down in a spray of sparks. The second turned, aiming at Kale. Zura moved. She didn't know how, but she moved. 1 second she was locked in a surge of energy. The next she was beside the operative, her hand glowing with pulsing script. She touched his chest and the armor disintegrated like ash and wind. He crumpled. Cal stared at her. Remind me never to make you mad. The hooded figure didn't move. You've only just begun. That was instinct. Soon it will be intention. Control. The network that spans the stars, it's dormant, sleeping. But with the right key, Zura advanced. Why send the message because others want what you carry? I want you to understand it first. Kale stepped beside her. Not a fan of cryptic cult talk, pal. The figure turned and vanished. Just like that. A flicker, a shimmer, gone. The chamber dimmed, the power draining. Zura fell to one knee, breathing hard sweat streaming down her face. Kale caught her. I've got you. She clutched his shirt. Kale, something's changed. He helped her stand. You think I could feel it? All of it. The network, the systems, the architecture of an entire civilization whispering through my mind. He held her tighter. Can you shut it up? I don't know. They staggered out of the vault, half-dazed, hearts racing. Outside, the wind had picked up, carrying a scent they hadn't smelled in days' engine fuel. Kale turned sharply. A Concorde gunship hovered in the distance, lights blinking through the fog. Zura's console pinged again. Another message, Kyle asked. She checked. Her eyes widened. It's from a Concorde commander. It says, they want to talk. Peacefully. They want me to come in. Kale's jaw tightened. Trap. Zura looked toward the vault, then toward the gunship. No, she said slowly. I don't think it is. She looked at him, eyes glowing, marks shimmering faintly. They know what I am now, and they're scared, which means I might have a chance to end this without more blood. Kale exhaled. I hate this plan. I know. You're going to do it anyway. She nodded. He stared at her. Then I'm coming too. Her smile was small, but real. I was hoping you'd say that. They stood together, mountain winds swirling around them, the vault humming faintly behind them, the ship waiting on the horizon. Everything was about to change, and they would face it together. The Concorde gunship touched down on a flat landing terrace just beyond the cliff path. The engines powered down slowly, a low thrum echoing through the rock like a living heartbeat. Kyle stood at Zura's side, rifle slung, but not drawn, tension wound tight in every muscle. She could feel it in the way he stood ready to throw himself between her and anything that moved. Zura's markings were dim, now controlled, almost still. But she wasn't calm. Inside her, the builder energy flickered and surged, not violent, but expectant, like it was waiting to be used. The gunship ramp hissed and lowered. A single figure descended, an older woman in polished Concorde command armor, her white hair tied back, expression unreadable. She wore no helmet, no visible weapons. She stopped 10 feet away and clasped her hands behind her back. Zura Vel, she said, I'm Admiral Inaya Rowe, and we need to talk. Zura stepped forward just one pace. You received the transmission. We did, Rowe said. And the fallout has already begun. High Command is divided. Harkivan has gone into hiding. Some want your head. Others want your cooperation. Kale scoffed. Funny how truth makes people indecisive. The Admiral's eyes flicked to him. You must be Sergeant Kale Rennick. You've made quite the mess. I specialize in that, Kale said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Rowe exhaled slowly. We've confirmed the authenticity of your data. The orders, the cover-ups, the interference with the Rythian relief fleet. Everything. You didn't just blow the whistle. You detonated a seismic charge under the foundation of Concorde law. Zura's voice was quiet. Good. The Admiral looked at her. Really looked. You're not just a witness anymore, she said. We've run scans on the relay node you accessed. On the vault. Whatever connection you formed with the Nexus system, it's real. And it's evolving. Zura didn't answer. Her silence was its own confirmation. We don't know what that means, Rose said carefully. We don't know what you could become. I don't know either, Zura said. But I didn't ask for this. I just wanted the truth to survive. The Admiral nodded. That's why I came in person. There are factions already hunting you, rogue Concorde elements, privateers, collectors of builder tech. If you vanish into the wilds again, they'll follow. And eventually, someone will shoot first. Kale stepped forward, jaw tight. So what's your offer? A sanctuary, Rose said. Not a prison, not a lab. A research facility in neutral space. You'll have autonomy, protection, and a chance to study this link on your own terms with your consent. Zura hesitated. Kyle looked at her. It's not the worst deal we've had lately. She glanced at him, then back at the Admiral. And if I say no, Rose's tone didn't change. Then I shake your hand, wish you luck, and make damn sure no Concorde team comes near you without clearance. You earned that much. Silence stretched between them. Then Zura extended her hand. I'll come, but Kyle comes with me. Rowe didn't hesitate. Done. Kyle blinked. Wait, that was fast. You're listed as her co-conspirator in 17 counts of classified data breach and obstruction, Rowe said. We might as well make it official. Kyle grinned. I always wanted a promotion. The ramp lifted behind them as they boarded the gunship. Zura sat by the viewport, gazing out over the mountains. Kale sat beside her, their shoulders touching. "You sure about this?" he asked. "No. Still doing it anyway." She nodded. "I've run long enough. Maybe it's time to stop." He reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. As the ship rose, the vault shrank beneath them. A distant glow pulsed from its spire, faint but growing. 3 weeks later, aboard Concord vessel, Marin's Promise, Zura walked barefoot across the observation deck. The stars outside pulsed with familiar patterns, some she now recognized by more than name. She could feel the builder network out there humming just beyond reach, a lattice of old thoughts waiting to awaken. Behind her, Cal sat with his feet on the table, munching something that looked like a crime against food science. "Still alive," he announced. "Barely," she replied, eyeing the synthetic ration bar. "If that thing doesn't kill you, I might." "You'll miss me," he said through a mouthful. "Highly unlikely." He stood stretching and walked to her side. "So what's it like being whatever you are now?" She tilted her head. "Loud, like I'm standing on the edge of 1,000 conversations, and all of them are waiting for me to speak." "And are you going to?" "Not yet," she said. "But soon." He slipped his arm around her waist, and she leaned into him without hesitation. "Whatever comes next," she said, "I want you there." "Not like I have better plans," he replied. "Besides, someone has to tackle you when you start glowing and trying to ascend into the builder ether." She laughed, really laughed, and Cal found himself smiling without thinking. A chime echoed through the ship. The Admiral's voice came through the comms. "Zura Vel Cal Rennick, please report to the research deck. We have a signal from another Nexus node. Coordinates incoming." Zura's smile faded into something more determined. Cal leaned in. "You up for it?" She turned to face him. Her eyes glowed faintly. "I think I was made for it." They walked out together, hand in hand. And somewhere across the stars, the network stirred. Not dead, not forgotten. Awakening.